Gang Gang. I can't believe we're actually here, guys.
Here we go. How many months did it take to get here?
I've been talking about doing a podcast for 2 years.
Oh, sick.
Oh, someone say 3, 2, 1.
3, 2, 1.
Hey, welcome to Echo Church Podcast episode 1.
Here we go. We made it.
Are you booing right now?
Wow. She's a quitter. Kick her out.
Wow. Welcome to Echo Church Podcast. It's really cool to start and be here. It's something that we wanted to do, honestly, because I believe there's so many questions that we have as Christians. And I know at our church, we have a ton of new believers. Yeah. And an hour on Sundays is not a lot of time to cover a lot of really biblical truths or even talk about Jesus. So we just wanted to open up an opportunity to talk more about it and post it on wherever this will be posted at.
Do we know where that's going?
I think like YouTube for sure.
Okay.
Joe?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
YouTube for sure.
YouTube for sure. Awesome.
Yeah,
that's been fun. Thanks for having me on.
Audio version. Oh, I'm DeMar.
I'm David.
This is David. What camera? You have to look at the right camera.
Yeah, I went cross-eyed there for a second.
Yeah, you were like, which one? Which one do you want me to? Anyway, yeah. David. David's our youth pastor here at our church.
Yep.
I am, insert job title, creative, weekend services director.
Weekend services director.
Weekend services director is my title. That's what I do. Yeah, weekend services director.
Hey, we got a name to it now.
Yeah, we got a name to my
That's an exclusive drop on this podcast.
Facts. I'm a weekend services director, which is really cool. And I have the opportunity to work at this church. You've been at Echo Church for how long?
5 years now.
5 years. Oh, you get a sabbatical this year?
This year.
A refresh. You get a refresh this year. That's really cool. I hope you have fun.
It's gonna be something.
Yeah, that's wild. I do not get a refresh this year. I do get vacation time. Thank the Lord. That's really cool. 5 years. I've been here. It will be a year at the end of March, which is crazy. Absolutely.
Are we throwing a party for it? I feel like
honestly, I asked, I was like, hey, do y'all celebrate like yearly anniversaries at the church? And they're like, nah, we don't really like do that as much.
It's like the random text thread.
Yeah.
It's like, you've been here. Good job.
But I was like, hey, guys, like we should start doing that. And they're like, because you're about to come up on a year? And I was like, I mean, maybe.
It's got to start somewhere.
Facts. Anyway, welcome to Echo Church Podcast. We're not just going to be talking about random things. Today, the topic is, I think a good starting point was why Christianity. I think a lot of times we dive into church, and there's a lot of people in this world that don't understand why we are so devoted to Jesus and why we believe in our faith. And I just wanted to have a little conversation about why Christianity is one convincing, but also something that we've chosen to do. And we're both going to be sharing individual stories and just the impact that Jesus has made on our life. And then also a little bit of like, man, this is why I believe Jesus is really who he is and who he says he is. But I think it's just a good conversation to have because people wander into church and they then go back to their jobs and people are like, why do you believe in that faith? You know, and it's a hard question to answer. So I thought it'd be good to start there. Is that okay? Yeah, that's good.
That's great.
All
you
right,
get to host this. I just get to follow along.
That's very true.
And ask questions.
I guess I made it up anyway. So, so first, I want to talk about personal transformation. I think a big reason why people choose Jesus is their personal testimony, like their walk with Christ. For me personally, the reason why it was really easy for me to dive into Christianity a little bit. My story is I grew up a pastor's kid, and I think at some point early in my life, I was doing my best to love Jesus. But there were some rough years throughout high school and after into college and a little bit afterwards where I don't think I was really following Christ. To be honest, I got on staff at a church and I still wasn't really following Christ. Wow. So my journey into researching and really learning what religion do I want to be, like what do I think? A lot of it has to do with my upbringing. Is I was going to start with Christianity because my parents are pastors. Right. So I was going to investigate Jesus. And that's a big reason why I was intrigued by Christianity, by Jesus, is my parents were phenomenal pastors. And I was going to start there. And if I
Right.
could disprove Jesus, I would have looked elsewhere. But I just couldn't, which we'll talk about later.
Yeah.
What about you?
Puerto Rican, so like
Hey.
that basically means
Boricua.
for those who
Sorry,
don't know,
no one knows what that means.
No.
It's Montana. I'm sorry, guys.
For those who don't know, basically, if you're Puerto Rican, you're Catholic right off rip.
Yeah.
Like that's where you start. Like you are pretty much like cradle Catholic, I guess is what they call it.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I didn't really understand because we would go to like mass and stuff, but I didn't understand it. No one really explained it to me. So like, I mean, I did the whole first communion thing and didn't really. Even until later, like middle school, I went to my first evangelical. Actually, it was a Pentecostal, Hispanic Pentecostal church.
Ooh.
It was. We can go into those details.
Skirts
later,
and suits and ties and everything.
flags, dancing. There was literally for a youth group. There was a guy who would break dance.
Do you know
during
worship? When I was in Houston, I lived in Houston for a year. I tried to learn Spanish on Duolingo. So I can know enough to go to a Spanish Pentecostal church because I wanted the experience so bad. Anyway,
so did that in middle school and really like. I would say I was saved then, but submission was hard for me because I didn't really understand, especially being brought up in the Catholic faith. It was do.
Yeah.
So I didn't really understand the submission side of it till like honestly like senior year going into college. I literally went to Bible college trying to figure out the submission aspect of her side of it, and it wasn't until then that it became real. Yeah. And I understood like David, your choices suck. And you as an individual are terrible. Yeah. And the whole reality of like, I do need a savior, but I also have to submit to his ways, not try to figure it out on my own. So I think that's at that point in my life, I don't want to say I arrived, but it made sense to me.
Yeah. So you're probably the same as me then in the way of we had some type of Christianity upbringing and then reinvestigated that later. Yeah. Yeah. And which is not everyone's story. No. Some people, there's a lot of people I love. I grew up in the Bible Belt, which is the South, and everybody's been in church forever. Like everybody's in church. We lived in Louisiana. Bailey was like, woo. We lived in Louisiana, and everybody's Catholic. Sorry, everybody's Catholic. It's the first population of black Catholics I've ever seen them out. Black Catholics doing drive-bys on horses.
I live right by the black.
You live right by the black church, the black Catholic church, and the white Catholic church was down the street.
Yeah, you can hear them singing.
It's crazy. You better not go in the wrong one either. Down Louisiana.
No, they accept you.
They accept you?
Yeah,
the black
no,
one? No, I'm talking about the white one. The white Catholic church. I can't go in there. No, you can't step foot in that one. I love you, Louisiana, but it's especially where I was in Opelousas, this little small town. The black Catholic church and the white Catholic church were right next to each other. You better go in the right color. Anyway, but everybody's Catholic down there, but everybody's Christian. We spent most of the time in ministry convincing people they weren't Christians. Wow. So like, I know there's a lot of people that grew up with Christian upbringing, especially in America, but we're here in the Northwest, or you grew up in Florida. I grew up in North Carolina. Here in the Northwest, a lot of people don't grow up with Jesus, any concept of Jesus. So what's cool about here is they walk into church for the first time. Yeah. They walk in for the first time really understanding and getting to know Jesus with no preconceived connotations, no church hurt, just blind. That's awesome. And just new, and it's fresh. And I love people like that. We're not like that. We investigated Jesus because we had some upbringing that led us there. But there's a lot of people in this world that are finding Jesus just because they're meeting him and encountering him, and it's really, really cool. Another reason why I chose Christianity is for me personally. I don't know about you, if you have any stories of this, but when I was kind of struggling between whether I want to be a Christian or not, I grew up Pentecostal and like Pentecostal, so praying for healing.
Can we explain a little bit to what that is?
Yeah. So Pentecostal, if you don't know, there's denominations of Christianity. We are actually a Pentecostal denomination, the Assemblies of God. So basically, what makes people Pentecostal is believing in the gifts of Spirit and believing in speaking in tongues. Yeah, like those about the two the two things, even amongst the Pentecostal denominations that we're going to agree on, is that we believe that the Holy Spirit is still doing work today through miracles. okay, through healing, through all these things, and also the Holy Spirit still can flow through us through the speaking of tongues. We believe in prophecy.
Yeah.
We believe in the gifts of the Spirit. We believe in those things.
Yeah.
Like, is that
no,
much,
that's good. I just wanted, I mean, who knows who's going to listen to this? It might be the 10 people that know what that means, or the 10 that don't.
The 10 that don't. That's right. So thank you for doing that. But I grew up Black Pentecostal, Southern Pentecostal, we crazy. Like the stereotype, like run around, roll on the ground, like people puking mid-service, like casting out demons. Like I grew up, like I saw somebody, like I don't know, they was crawling like a scary movie. You know, like in those thrillers, like not thrillers, but like those like scary movies, and the demon like coming at you, like, and like I see somebody do that in service. Like my church was wild. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of things that I think happened that I was like, I don't know about, especially at that time. But there's some things that happened that I couldn't shake. I couldn't shake. There's some things that I've seen that I just couldn't shake. One of those things is my parents were foster parents. I had a foster sister, and she was pregnant at the time. And she was having a ton of complications, and they were really worried that she may not be able to continue her pregnancy. Wow. And we went to a church service, this night church service, and this apostle, he called himself an apostle, whether you believe it or not, whatever. But he came up and he began to prophesy over her and go, hey, and she didn't know him. He didn't know her. Okay. And he walked up and go, the Lord is telling me that you're having complications with your pregnancy. And we're immediately like, oh, okay. Mm-hmm. I mean,
you guys knew that already.
Yeah, we knew. And she knew. Mm-hmm. He didn't. Right. And then he goes, this is the wildest thing you could possibly say. This is so stupid. And I'm like, I even hate saying this, but it's true. This is a true story. Yeah. He goes, the Lord told me to put water in my mouth and spit it on your stomach. And when I do that, your baby's going to be healed. And you're going to go to the doctor this week and you're going to find out that everything is completely fine. All the complications are going to be gone. Well, what's crazy is she had a doctor's appointment that week. Mm-hmm. And he didn't know that either. So then he proceeded to just spit on her stomach.
What was that reaction
like? I don't know. He said so many right things that you just kind of accepted at that point. And also, this Pentecostal church, like when you see people devil crawl at you, this is the most normal thing that happened, right? So a weird thing, admittedly weird. Most people would be very uncomfortable with this encounter, right? But until she goes to the doctor. And finds out that all the complications are gone. Wow. And the doctors are dumbfounded. Yeah. It's crazy till it works, right? So now I'm going through this middle time in my life where I'm struggling with Christianity, but what I can't get past is the many miracles. That's one of many miracles that I've seen. I've seen people roll into a church in a wheelchair and walk out. Right. Like legit. When you've seen so many things, it's like, okay, God has to be real. Right. And I think I struggled with that. I don't know. Do you have anything?
Yeah, I mean, that was really my turning point. My faith was diagnosed with a brain tumor as a senior in high school. Okay. And I had a couple seizures that led me into the hospital. They did a scan, like, yeah, you got a tumor. And I was like, what does that mean? So last doctor I had a meeting with before going into surgery was an oncologist. I didn't know what that meant. Come to find out, that's a cancer doctor, and they were just preparing for the worst. Wow. And I remember the night before I've shared this with our students. The night before my surgery, my youth pastor showed up. I had been kind of attending church at that point, and youth pastor showed up, and it was a weird going away party. That's what it felt like. Yeah. All my friends got together, and then right before he left, he prayed for me, and he goes, "David, I'm just claiming that this bacteria would be gone." And I thought it was kind of awkward that he said that and weird, not knowing what it was. I'm like, okay. So then went into surgery. It was like a 3-hour surgery. Didn't have any complications, but when I came to, the doctor's like, yeah, it just seemed like some bacteria encases itself. And we were able to get it all out. It all looks good. You're ready to go. And I was like, what did you say it was? And then I remember going back to my youth pastor, like, why did you say that? And he goes, I don't honestly remember saying that. I just felt like that's what the Lord put on my heart, and it's what I spoke over you. And I was like, okay, God, you got my attention. Wow. And at that point, it was more of I want more of this. Wow. I don't know what it is. I mean, till this day, they sent it to the CDC, and they were like, we don't know what it is. And there was no, it's not bad. I mean, it's not good that you had a tumor, but it wasn't bad. So at that point, like that miracle in my life opened the door to, okay, God, like you got my attention.
Okay.
What's next?
Wow. That's crazy. I actually didn't know that. Didn't know that full story. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think what made it harder for me to come to Christ is that I don't think I ever really experienced anything like that for myself.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
Right.
especially growing up.
And I think that's so many stories.
Yeah.
Like they don't have, you know, my wife grew up in the church, but she was under the false impression, I don't have a testimony.
Yeah.
Until this day we talk about it. Like took years of her really exploring her own faith, was like, no, you have one of the most powerful testimonies.
God kept you.
Exactly.
So I tell my wife.
Right. And like, I think too often we know we want that for ourselves, but then also realize that God is doing that in other people, and that is still as powerful. Like for your sister.
Yeah.
Like he did that. So you were like, I can't deny what we found out.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Well, so why Christianity? One reason is for us, we grew up in church.
Yeah.
So it made us a little bit more intrigued in it, for
Right.
sure. And then two, like God and the Holy Spirit still moves, right? So like it made us both interested or going, okay, God, who are you?
Yeah.
What do you have for us? Another reason that I was very interested in Jesus was I like it's morality and the teachings of Jesus. I'll say it like this: is I like Jesus. I think what kept me away from the church is I didn't like the people that followed him. So I was a big fan of the guy that I would read about, but I was not a fan of the people that were following. Have you ever shared in that sentiment? Do you understand that? If not, I just wonder.
Again, Pentecostal Hispanic church.
Yeah.
I have got some family members that I never understood. I mean, we can use the Christian terms of like legalism in that sense. Like they were super like coming down on it, but I didn't really understand why. And I was kind of wild in my high school years. So like they didn't really like me to start with. So it was like, it just made it easier to not connect with them.
Yeah.
But I feel that. And I think at the end of the day, if we want to pinpoint, it's self-righteousness and pride that leak in. And I think we can all say or sentiment with the fact that we don't like prideful people.
No.
Especially self-righteous people.
Yeah.
So yeah, I get it. I think, we've heard it often. I think it was Pastor Austin this last weekend said like, hey, you can't say like that you love Jesus, but you don't love the church.
Yeah.
Cause it just like, you're a part of the church
100%.
and the church is people.
Yep.
But yeah, I think it makes it harder at times,
100%.
especially if you don't know, or if you do know the people, to want to come into that circle or include yourself in that circle.
Yeah. For me, the reason why I struggled with people, the church, is I'm finding my faith. I went to a Bible college just like you. I didn't go for sports though. I wasn't that cool.
I don't think I was either.
But I went to Bible college, and I'm going. My grandfather, he passed, and the last thing he asked me to do is to not stop trying to go to the military, do something different.
Wow.
And my whole life I had planned on going to the Marine Corps, and at this point I wasn't getting in for various reasons. So now I'm sitting here like God, not really God, just what am I supposed to do? And I just was like, you know what? I think I need to get my life right. I'm not living well. I know that I'm living opposite of what I want to. I don't really like my life, so why not try this Christian thing? So I went to a Christian college, and I went to Christian college in Ohio, and the Christian colleges in Ohio, I'm not making fun of them. I love them, brothers and sisters in Christ for sure, but a lot of them were homeschool white kids, and I'm from rough neighborhoods. Like I'm black. I'm black from the South, and I'm from rough neighborhoods. I wasn't rocking with homeschool.
Couldn't relate.
Like we had nothing
get that.
in common. So I'm talking to them about Christianity. We're having conversations, and they're saying things like 21 Pilots is more Christian than I don't even know. Like I love 21 Pilots, but it like we're having arguments about dumb stuff that really made me
Didn't
so
really
mad.
matter, right?
It didn't matter to anybody, and this Christian college was located in the hood, so like I had some of the girls would take me running with them because they were scared to go around neighborhoods I grew up in. Like, you know what I mean? Like it was just really prejudice. Like, I've experienced a ton of racism, and just like I felt very isolated. And I was studying about the Bible, and I was liking the guy in the book, but I wasn't liking the people that said that they would spend their life following him. They felt called to his service. And I admit it. I was one of those people. I loved Jesus. I hated his people. I hated his people. I didn't want to be a part of the church. I didn't want to be at the Christian college. I dropped out after a semester. It was awful for me. I hung out with all the athletes because, you know, Christian colleges, the athletes ain't saved.
No.
Now, that one's you, though. You know what I mean?
I mean, there's
Christian
a story
colleges,
there.
The athletes usually aren't saved. Like, you got one or two. So I hung out with all the unsaved people, and that's where I found friends with. And
But I think that's such a parallel with Jesus.
Yeah.
I
Isn't
mean,
it?
Like,
But that's why I liked him in the book.
right.
But when you listen to the people talk about him that like him
Right.
and love him,
Like,
it
why
just
do you sit
feels
with
like the
sinners? Why are
opposite,
you
right?
having, yeah.
And obviously we're now church staff people now, and I like the way I felt was real, but what you're saying is also real. I wasn't really loving Jesus because it comes with the cost, not even a cost, like the burden to love his people.
Right.
The cost is the wrong word. It definitely is a burden, and a healthy and happy and wonderful burden that he places on his people. You can't be built on a cornerstone without being built next to some other stones, you know?
Right.
So I'm thankful that I've gotten past that, but that feeling was very real, which made me very interested in Jesus and made me research him a little bit more. So I took a class in college that did something for me called History of Christianity. And I think it changed my life forever.
Okay.
And this is where I started to get into the historical evidence of Jesus and who he really is. And I think at this point in my life, I think it's really hard to argue against the existence of Jesus. Very difficult when you start to really research if he existed or not.
So you're saying at this point, like currently, not like
no.
when you were...
So even in college, the history of Christianity class is what really got me into it. I know a lot more now, but like just really researching the historical evidence really brought me into Jesus is really real.
Okay.
He really existed. He really this dude is who he says he is, and I must believe and follow him. I think in Christian college, I was like, I like him, but like you said, wasn't really submitted. Didn't feel the need to be submitted, but like the dude. You like the guy. Like that guy, he says some good stuff, and I like the way he lived. I would like to live like that without let me sin though. But then get into this point where I realized that Jesus really did die. And he rose again. Before I jump into some historical things that made me really fall into it, what was the clincher? Was it the brain tumor? Was it what was the flip of the switch for you?
Honestly, I was getting in trouble in college. That really turned it for me.
What you do? Hold on.
Athletes. We're not going into the details. But I actually shared this with students last night. But it was
we don't do Echo Church podcast uncut. We're gonna share it up there,
unfiltered.
Unfiltered.
End of my freshman year, spring semester of my freshman year in college, I had to get a rescan again of my brain, and they're like, "Hey, it looks like something's showing up again." We don't know what it is. They didn't know if it was leftover from the first surgery or what, but it kind of brought up some feelings. Yeah. And I decided I'm going to deal with them the only way I know how to. Hispanic, they drink.
They sure do.
And I just kind of started coping that way. Yeah. And the reality was I got caught at college.
Yeah. Especially Christian college.
Christian
you can't
college.
drink it. You signed the letter.
And a minor. They were like...
You weren't 21 yet?
Yeah, no. They were like... I mean... It was by God's grace I didn't get kicked out. Because in the past, they would have easily...
I didn't get caught.
I guess. And I got caught. So actually, I'm not going to lie. Someone snitched on me.
You tripping.
And I said...
Stop telling everybody what you're doing now.
I wasn't even telling people. No, I remember I told... so I got caught. I had to do a mentorship for I don't know how long.
Yeah.
And I remember in that process, he just told me, he asked me the question, hey, whose idea was it for you guys to go out drinking? It was a whole group of us that got caught. And I was like, well, I mean, I kind of planned it. I knew we were going to have fun. And
honesty.
I know. And
Best
it was
policy. Best policy. It's always good to be honest,
and
kids.
at that point, it like clicked for me. Like, I need to be submitted to Jesus.
That's good.
I joke, but I don't know who snitched on us. But I'm gonna go on record and say thank you, because it really changed the direction. I mean, I went from like trying to hide everything, constantly looking over my shoulder, like, when am I gonna get caught? Kind of that double life of like, I like this guy, I like Jesus, I like everything he stands for because he's gonna take me with him one day, but I don't know that I can live that out. And then at that point, I realized, if you submit to what he has to say. And his standard, not your own, that's really where it turned for me.
I took it. Well, thank you for sharing. That's really awesome. I wish I would have got caught too, man. I wish I would have got caught. I did not. But I took a history of Christianity class, and I found out some facts that really drove in things for me. Like, for instance, like Jesus, like hearing Lee Strobel. Story,
Case for Christ,
or Josh McDowell's or work. I can't think of his name. His book. Sorry,
Joe, what
Josh
is
McDowell.
it?
Yeah, Josh McDowell wrote a book, bro. Just Google it real quick. Josh McDowell book. It's like a craftsman, a workman of crafts. I don't know, bro. Whatever. But I'm brewing on all this stuff, right? And then I leave the school. We go. I get on staff at a church. I'm still not saved. I ain't gonna lie. What's the name of it?
New evidence.
New evidence? No, evidence that requires
There's evidence that demands verdict.
Thank you. I read the shortened version of that, but that like
shout out to Joe for fact checking.
Basically, what got him was the disciples, 11 disciples after Jesus died, clearly scripturally left the faith. Like, weren't believing in Jesus anymore, and then they had a sudden change of heart. Sudden, like so sudden that they were willing to die for something that they weren't willing to die for before. Peter.
Right. I mean, they were hiding.
Peter, weren't you with that guy?
Yeah.
No, not me. Weren't you with that guy? No, won't me. Weren't you with that guy?
Cock-a-doodle-doo.
No. And Jesus looks at him. Jesus was still, before death, looked them dead in the eyes and was like, really? No, he didn't say that. He didn't say that. But for real, like, they gave up.
Right.
They thought it was over, and then now they're willing to die for this man that they clearly didn't believe in days before. Days. So he's like, something had to happen. So either they're crazy, they had a hallucination, they were lying, they stole his body, or it was real. And he got to the conclusion that was real because the other conclusions don't make sense.
Right.
And it led me to go, okay, like maybe this Jesus thing is real. Still not submitted. But then I went to Passion Conference with a church that I got on staff with. Yes, I was not really following Jesus. And then, yes, I was a worship leader on staff. Check your worship leaders, pastors. Anyway, we went to this thing called Passion Conference in Atlanta, Georgia. It was the first one at the new Georgia Dome.
Wow.
I think it was like 58,000 people in the building. It was something crazy, like 60,000 people, young adults in the building. And shout out to Louis Giglio. Put it on Passion Conference is amazing. If you have the chance to go and you're a young adult, please go. It's incredible. But there's a pastor that preached there named John Piper. And this is the session that everybody else fell asleep on. Everybody else, I was with 30 other people. They all thought he was so boring. He talked about the only thing he ever preaches is we need to be in love with Jesus. We need to love him more than we love anything else. He needs to have our devotion, and it like, I don't know, it wrecked me. Yeah. It wrecked me, and I cried, and I realized that I just didn't give my devotion to a man that I know really was real. Yeah. Like,
so, would you say it was a combination of that book?
Yes.
Understanding, like, these guys died.
This is a real thing that I should be devoted to, but I didn't want to be devoted to it. And
then hearing
John Piper comes and goes, come on. Like, he deserves your, like, he is the thing worth it. And I'm sitting here on all this thought process, like, he is that. Right. Like, if I do believe that he is who he says he is, I have to devote my life to him. And I think that's where the light switched for me. Now, listen, I still was out here. You know what I mean? Like, Like the actions didn't catch up with the thought process quite soon, but that's where my forward progression for sure. Prefrontal cortex, whatever it's called, not done. It wasn't
fully developed
all around, but that's where my forward progression started.
Yeah.
Where I could see myself actually growing in Christ and changing, and now I can look back and go, I really am a new creature.
Right.
Like God really did change
What
me.
about, I mean, I kind of want to dive into that a little bit more. Like, what about the 11 disciples?
It's like when the other theories are not good.
Okay.
So like when you're looking at Jesus dying and you're going, hey, did they lie? Did they hide did they steal the body? Which is in the Bible. In the Bible, they state that people are going to say that they stole the body, right? But when you really look into it, like the Romans weren't letting, like they fell asleep, bro. Like that's so wild. Like one, they fell asleep. That's wild. Two, like they're not going to let you steal, like you're not stealing the body. 3, when you have 400 to 600 people saying that they saw Jesus walking after he was brutally murdered.
Right.
Brutally murdered. It's crazy. 4, if they were planning on stealing the body, why would they deny him? If they were planning on to put on a ruse, why would they deny him? So it just doesn't make sense. Like if I was planning on tricking you, I'm gonna stay committed to it.
Right.
Like it's just not. It's not there. And then the people that said that they stopped believing were close friends with those people.
Right.
Like so I'm like it doesn't make sense to me that John. Or like, you know what I mean? Or Matthew, Mark, or Luke, like, you know what I mean, would write in that way. Yeah. So convincingly. Yeah. If they stole they stole it. Like there would never be a moment if I'm denying Christ if I already know he's fake.
Right. Willing to die for it after that.
Exactly. Like I already know it's fake. But also I already know it's fake. So why would I be denying it? I've been like, I have to steal his body. He's like dead, you know? Yeah. And then also denial happened before he even got in the grave. They lost faith before that. You think they got together in 2 days? Right. It was like, oh, it's a giant plan. Let's save him. Like they weren't willing to save him before. So like stealing the body is not a thing. Lying, like literally bold-faced lying to people is not a thing. It doesn't make sense. They were disbanded. So when would they get together to show up and be like, actually, we're going to act like he was the Messiah? Like they would be embarrassed. They would tuck their tails and go home. Saying they're crazy. Like they said, like people believe they have a similar hallucination. Josh McDowell did a ton of research into it. Like that's just not a thing. Like people sitting next to each other having the same hallucination doesn't really happen.
I think we can even go into the subject of like in the Gospels we see the same story repeated. Yeah, like 100%. What are the chances?
What are the odds that you have 4 different dudes talking about the same thing? Also, they say 400 people saw him. So that now it's not just 2 people that have the same hallucination. It's 400 people at different times hallucinating that Jesus came back, making it up. Yeah. So like, it's also like, we're talking about 11 people that were like really, really, really close with him. Right. Why would 400 say that? Who's convincing them? Right. And then who would take that to death? Yeah. Who would take that to death? Like they could be crazy and really making it up, but like that many, we're talking about like they get up and preach and then 3,000 people that could have very well seen Jesus. Like at Acts 2, very well can talk to people that experienced him. Right. Give their life to Christ and willing to die for it at a drop of a dime. Like there's something happening here that's a little bit more. And to me, being crazy, still in the body, just bold-faced lying, just doesn't feel realistic. It just doesn't feel right. Right. It feels like something was happening that was really tangible, that really can be seen. And I think that's Jesus getting out of the grave and the Holy Spirit coming to continue his church. Right.
And that's where you land on. Yeah. How do you deny that?
Yeah. It's just, there's not enough proof. That's why there's still atheists out here trying to disprove it. There's just not enough proof to disprove a man. It's been 2,000 years. If you're going to say he's fake, you would have had the proof by now. Yeah. So the fact that it's even still a conversation is crazy. Like nobody thinks that Muhammad was the son of God. Nobody thinks Buddha was the son of God. But there's one man that said he is, and you still can't disprove it. You still can't disprove it. It's like, I don't know. It's just hard to beat.
That's good. I mean, the historical context is hard to beat, right? Like, I love history, and I think too often we don't look at the many accounts. It's not just 1 or 2 accounts. It's many accounts, like you said, of 100%. People that he was walking, he was alive. But then history continues to reveal itself to us, and we continue to find things that continue to prove truth.
And then like the different records, the testaments, like the fact, like the synoptic gospels, where you're talking about Matthew, Mark, and Luke, where they're looking at the writings of Jesus and they tell the stories from different perspectives. If they were lying, they wouldn't have little differences. Like they wouldn't tell if we are going to lie to them, we're going to talk about it first, and we're going to have the same story
straight. Yeah.
We're going to have the same story, but the fact that they have a different perspective, like even a slightly different quote, same meaning, lets me know that they're remembering how they perceive the situation. And you're remembering how you perceive the situation, and then we're also writing about it.
Yeah, I've heard
And I
it
think
said
that's
this
really
way. It's a portrait of his life, not a picture.
Exactly. It's like people taking their brush and painting a section.
Yeah,
and
their interpretation of like how it happened.
Exactly. And that's, I think that's what's cool about it. To me, even proves it further. And then to write about these dudes and they be honest about the fact that they failed. They be honest about the fact that Jesus got on them. They be honest about that. Like they don't make themselves the hero in their own little story. Like how often do you tell a story of something you want people to follow? Except for John. John was he was the fastest. He was everything. John was that guy, right? He filled in the blanks for everybody. And he's like, Peter sucks. No, he didn't say that. He didn't say that. But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like when, especially at Matthew, Mark, and Luke.
Yeah.
When you're looking at those gospels and you're hearing those stories, like you can see the different perspectives, and honestly, that's the best lie of all time.
Right? Can we stop there for a second,
Yep.
and I'll ask the question just for whoever watches. Yep. Synoptic Gospels.
Oh, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Sorry, synoptic Gospels are the Gospels that are most like they're telling the story of Jesus most alike. So Matthew, Mark, and Luke are most similar, have the most overlapping stories. Okay. John is not a synoptic gospel. It's 94% unique.
Okay.
So meaning John really wrote it later to fill in the blanks of where they missed. So it's clear that he read those three and then it was like, I'm going to tell you some other stories.
Right.
But Matthew, Mark, and Luke tell similar stories. So they say they're just kind of run parallel to each other. And just have different perspectives on the same situation.
Sweet. Just wanted to clarify.
Yeah,
you never
thank
know.
you.
No, you got it. Like I love having these conversations with you because we can dig into those. We know those terms.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think even people that might hear this will be like, "Oh, I know what he means there," but there's always that one. And I don't want them to feel left out. Like I want them to feel included.
That's our church culture. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
But lastly, just now, how has your journey with faith in Jesus been? I know this is such a broad question and big question, but like after turning, like give me your best 1 minute quick snapshot of like how your journey, what has faith in Jesus been like with you?
My life is not my own.
Yeah, that's good.
I think, any point of my life. I mean, I look at my entire life in general. I got kids now. I've third one on the way. Shout out to my wife.
Hey.
But also like
you too, man.
Also the reality of it changed completely how I live my life.
Yeah.
It went from a selfish person who only worried about themselves and what they're going to get out of life to now experiencing that love. And when I submitted to that love, it quickly made me realize I want other people to experience this for themselves. Yeah. And if I can be a part of that, like, that's it. We're going to do it. And everything we've done has been not perfect, but in submission to Jesus.
That's good.
Whether it was moving we had a stint in California where we lived there for a year trying to figure out what we were doing after marriage. I know, don't mention that. I mentioned that in the Montana podcast.
No.
So we lived there for a year and really trying to figure out what was next for us. We freshly married, newlyweds. Like we lived there almost a year to the date, and then we got a call saying, "Hey, there's a youth pastor position that opened up in South Dakota." One of my professors from college called me, and I threw your name in the mix. And I was wrestling. I knew I was called to ministry, but wrestling so much with what that looked like. No one in my family was in ministry. Like I didn't have that exposure. I didn't know what that looked like. Part of my wife's family did, and I remember. We said, we're going to go check this out. Yeah. Like, I don't know what that looks like, but that means moving our family. At the time, it was just me and my wife. Moved to South Dakota, served there for 3 years, and good and well knowing that's where God had led us to. And we were submitting to what he wanted us to do, which then in turn led us to move here, which that was a whole backstory. That's a whole different episode, I guess. Yeah. But the reality was like we are now in submission to Jesus.
Yeah.
So that means as a family, like I don't want to even say just me, I get to lead my family in that. So I get to set the example, and sometimes my wife reminds me that's not the right example at times. But then also knowing that we both want to submit our lives to Jesus.
Yeah.
So whatever we do, knowing that there's a call of God on our life, we have to be sensitive to that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I remember I moved away from Florida for college, and I knew I had a gut feeling, and Holy Spirit was really just showing me that that you're never coming back.
Wow.
And I remember the last conversation with my mom. If she ever watches this, she's gonna laugh. She looked at me and said, "Hey, now, don't be a pastor on me. Don't become a pastor." Joke's on you, Mom.
Yeah,
here I am. But yeah, like it was the submission piece, and now we're here. I mean, it's been a journey. I graduated in 2012, and it's 2025.
Yeah.
And been submitted to Jesus ever since. So
That's awesome.
shout out to Echo Church for
Echo
putting up with me.
Yeah. For me, mine has been a series of, I'm trying my best to listen to God, but he keeps kicking me in the butt and telling me I'm clearly not listening to him. But it's been a journey of growth, and just a lot of states, a lot of churches, a lot of people, a lot of groups, but mostly just one God, just trusting Jesus every step of the way.
Yeah.
I've gone from single to dating to single again to dating to single again to same girl, then marrying her. You know what I mean? Being engaged, long distance. I've gone to quite a few states. I've had my downs, little ups, lots of downs. But
we're on
really,
the upside.
Yeah, God really, like we talked about this, like no one likes prideful people. I was probably still am one of the most prideful, but just God really shoving humility down my throat, but also just showing me how much he loves me and cares for me, and keeping me and covering me. And all I've had to do was believe in him, and he's taking care of the rest. I've been jobless. I've been homeless. I've been a lot of things, but God has always been consistent, and he's always carried me. And I think that's where my journey's been. It's like, God, okay. I think he's just really trying to get me to trust him.
Right.
And really go, Damar, like, I got you forever. Yeah. And my journey has been trusting him a little bit more and more every day.
Right.
And when I don't, he likes to kick me. I don't know if that's theologically correct, but that's how it feels sometimes. But it's the most loving kick of all time.
Right. Yeah.
You know. But anyway, why Christianity? That's why we're here, and it's good to know more of your story. And hopefully, you guys. I'm pointing at the camera. I don't know if he switched. You guys have enjoyed hearing more about Pastor David and myself. And as we continue, like, I don't know, hit us up if you watch it and be like, hey, I want to know actually about this, or can we talk about these subjects? Because we would love to just cater to our church and people that want to know more about God. We just want to talk about it.
And I think, share it.
Yeah.
If you enjoy it, share it with your friends.
Wait, like and subscribe. Did we say that? Like and subscribe.
And not just take it a following, because like we say this here at our church, we want people to like us, but we want them to love Jesus,
man.
And I think if this can help anyone love Jesus, like sweet.
Yeah,
I mean, hopefully you like it. Hopefully it's a good conversation.
Yeah.
If not, there's always episode 2.
Yeah, try again next time. Anyway, all right. This feels like a good closing. How long have we been here, Joe?
46 minutes.
Oh, we had 46 minutes. This is like, we could be here for 14 more minutes. No, I'm joking. I'm done. This has been great. Welcome. Thanks for supporting episode 1 of Echo Church Podcast. We really appreciate y'all. Like and subscribe. Did we say that?
We did.
Like and subscribe. Yeah. Where do I hit the like?
One? We'll put it somewhere. Do it.
I don't
Joe,
know where it is.
Shout out to Joe. He will make it look good.
What if he does? He might not.
You're in front of your computer right now. What am I going to look at?
Like and subscribe. Like, I don't know. I'm new. I'm new, guys.
We're new at this. We'll get it. Well, he'll get it right the next time.
All this. Don't worry.
I'm new.
Shout out to Joe for putting this together.
Facts.
Shout out to you for like your vision behind this. We've talked for months.
Yeah, we have.
And this has been a dream.
Yeah.
Of yours.
Cool. Yeah.
And here we are.
It's really cool. Please don't hate it. All right. No, we're so thankful. We're thankful for y'all. And welcome to Echo Church Podcast. We'll see you next time.